Now, in the coming days, if you should drive to any service station, there's a likelihood that when it comes to the price per litre, it could go up by 5%. Now, this is not because of the usual reviews that happens to petroleum prices, but because of this new sulfur levels the National Petroleum Authority is actually implementing. So why has it happened at this particular time, and what are the possible implications on the industry? And did the regulator actually didn't forecast well when it actually said that this implementation of this new sulfur levels would not affect prices? There is more in this report. Apart from the minimum capital requirement that the governor of the Bank of Ghana is likely to announce in the first week of next month, commercial banks in the country should by the end of this year start implementing a new regulatory requirement that could compel them to increase their capital, again, based on the business that they want to undertake, or call it risk-based capital. So let's say if the capital is increased to 450 million Ghana cedis, and that same bank wants to undertake a business that requires a lot more funds, then that bank may have to increase its capital again. All these have forced some of these banks to start this engagement with other financial institutions of like mind, so they're not overtaken by events. Joy Business, for instance, can confirm that one foreign bank and another local bank have engaged in serious major talks, whilst others are talking to strategic investors that could change the ownership structure of these banks. And we deeply apologize for that wrong file that was rolling on earlier on, bringing you that particular video which is talking about the fact that those who bring in petroleum products are actually forecasting that the price could be going up by 5%. Now, it is not because of the usual variables that actually impact the price, but the fact that the National Petroleum Authority is implementing these new levels for diesel. That means that you cannot bring in anything lower than 50 ppms. So let's see whether the video is ready, and let's roll on this report about the impact of this development on the industry. Apart from the minimum capital requirement that the governor of the Bank of Ghana is likely to announce in the first week of next month, commercial banks in the country should by the end of this year start implementing a new regulatory requirement that could compel them to increase their capital, again, based on the business that they want to undertake, or call it risk-based capital. So let's say if the capital is increased to 450 million Ghana cedis, and that same bank wants to undertake a business that requires a lot more funds, then that bank may have to increase its capital again. All these have forced some of these banks to start this engagement with other financial institutions of like mind, so they're not overtaken by events. Joy Business, for instance, can confirm that one foreign bank and another local bank have engaged in serious major talks, whilst others are talking to strategic investors that could change the ownership structure of these banks. One thing that Joy Business can state is that looking at some of these discussions, if they are successful, then the increase in the minimum capital requirement will indeed lead to some drastic reduction in the number of banks in the country. That was a report rather on the banking sector, but let's hop onto the phone lines and speak to Senior Hosi about this whole forecast of the marginal hike in price of petroleum products. He is the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. Senior Hosi, thank you so much for joining us on Marketplace. So, what are the reasons for this marginal hike in the price of petroleum products on the market?
Well, first of all, it's a function of the change in the timing. We are getting a bit out of the summer. During the summer, the market has experienced some discounts, and it's benefited from that. So you realize that the market prices have been like 8% lower than NPAs, the authorities' benchmark pricing. But that's been reversed now because those discounts are not going to be realized also with the new introduction of the new specification. So that's clawed back, and we expect some 5%, and that's already been seen in the market as we speak.
But Senor, earlier we got the understanding from the National Petroleum Authority that the implementation of this new sulfur levels for diesel might not witness, we wouldn't witness any significant jump in prices. So what is happening now?
The MPA does its analysis from a benchmark pricing level to another benchmark pricing level. So when you have a market below the benchmark, you will not necessarily see the same 1%. So even though the prices in real pump prices have moved, much more than that 1%, it is still lower than the projected estimates that the MPA had. The MPA just had a higher benchmark when it was making its analysis, and it was not factoring in discounts that the market had realized and had factored into the pump price. So that's just the reason. The market is still benefiting from lower prices compared to what the MPA would have set if it's still in a regulated regime.
I look at the dynamics on the international market. We are in summer, and I know that demand for that product is quite high. Going forward, are we going to see some sustained increment in price of diesel because of this development?
You may just have that happen marginally because the summer really moves a lot of demand from gas oil to gasoline, because a lot of people like to drive and have fun in Europe, and those guys are drivers of volume. So that's what's been the case. I don't expect much change because we are now very much aligned with the European specification, and that change would just be a bit marginal because producers are also adjusting their supply activities to match estimated demand.
So finally, is the industry really comfortable with this whole standard levels for importation of diesel? Because we also hear that it's not as smooth as we thought.
For us as importers, we are very fine. Our suppliers are well positioned to meet our requirements, and it's comparatively much easier and less cumbersome. The only thing we have to deal with is the transition period. You still have a bit of the old stock, and you're bringing in new stock. We have to find a way to phase and monitor it, and that's something that we are working hard with the authority to phase up within a maximum 3-month period. So we are fine. And I think consumers will be benefiting from that fully soon.
We just cannot wait for that benefit that we are all looking forward to. Senor Hosi, as Chief Executive of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution Companies, and sharing some thoughts with us over there. So let's hop on to some stock market issues. And 5 companies listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange could by next Friday be asked to get away, move off. Why? Because they failed to comply with the listing rules or the listing requirements, like, for instance, publishing annual results, meeting the listing fees, and also active trading in the stock market. Now, these companies, you can talk about Clydestone, Golden Web, Transol, an African Champion, and then Pioneer Kitchenware Company. So, is this thing coming too late? When we all knew that the stock market, these companies were not active on the market, how would this actually impact you if you are a shareholder in these companies? Let's get onto the line and speak to Alex Bohene. He is with Data Bank, head of brokerage. Alex, thank you so much for joining us on Marketplace. And I will first want to ask you that what do you make of this action by the Ghana Stock Exchange?
Yeah, I think the action is in the right direction. I mean, even though it's coming a bit late, but it's something that we all share with, it's a view we share with the Ghana Stock Exchange.
You share with the Ghana Stock Exchange. Then help me out. I mean, do you think that it's gotten to that stage where we can ask these companies to actually delist them from the Ghana Stock Exchange? Because they've in a long time failed to comply with the rules of engagement when it comes to the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Yes, delisting is an option, but I think it is not the best option, in particular because if you look at our market is quite small. We have very few stocks that are listed, just about 40 stocks. And the stock exchange's posture should be to actually encourage more listing rather than delist companies that are already on the bus. what I will say is that for us to be prudent for this company to look at themselves again and probably repackage themselves and then migrate them into the GACS, I think that will be a very viable option for them at this moment. Because when these companies were listed, the GACS was not in existence. And now that we have the GACS, I think most of these companies could be a good candidate for the GACS. Because, I mean, if you look at the exchange, the main market, the listing obligation or continual listing obligation
so we don't need to
is quite stringent. It's quite stringent, and for instance, you must meet a certain reporting standard. Your report, your accounting financial statement must be reported on quarterly basis, and you should hold an AGM and all that. But I think that on the GACS, the rules are a bit relaxed, and that will be suitable for these companies. And later, when they actually become matured, they can then be migrated onto the main market. So I think that the listing is an option, but it is not the best option in our view, especially when we are trying to encourage more domestic companies to list on the stock exchange.
Alex, let's look at another critical thing as well. The impact of this development on market confidence and investor attraction. Now, we are striving, or the managers are striking, or trying to bring in a lot of companies into the market. Do you think that developments like these will actually discourage other companies that look at the stock market as a viable option to come on, because it's really not that active?
No. Let's try and put things in better perspective. I mean, if you look at the 5 companies that have been suspended, if you put their market capitalization together, it's just under 6 million compared to about 58 billion for the whole market. On a year-to-date basis, these companies cumulatively have traded about 50,000 shares in value, you understand? So they are almost significant on the market, and everyone knows that, every investor knows that these companies are not significant players. So this action for me might not indicate any problem with the stock exchange. Yeah.
Alex, finally,
because they are almost literally irrelevant on the market.
Interesting, but still, when I sell even one share of it, I could get something else. But let's look at the impact of this development on investors or shareholders in this particular share. One, what would this suspension, how could it impact on me if I hold a share, and also possibly if they have to delist them? What are the avenues for them to ensure that their investments are protected?
Yes, well, the impact is that, George, if you hold shares now, you can't sell it until the suspension is actually reversed. That is the sad aspect of it. And so traders or investors who want to buy or sell will not be able to do that. I think that in terms of delisting, it might be a bit premature. I believe that these companies will be engaged by the stock exchange to see the best way forward.
Alex, immense thanks for your contribution. We're linking up live to Alex Bohene. He's head of brokerage at DataBank Financial Services. On one of the big news that broke over the weekend, 5 companies, Ghana Stock Exchange has actually suspended trading in these shares, and we're looking forward to what will happen next Friday. So let's move on and do something banking. Now, the banks have actually started engaging themselves to ensure that if the Bank of Ghana comes out next week to announce the new minimum capital levels, they are not taken over by event. What we understand is that apart from this proposed minimum capital requirement that could go up by as much as 450 or even 520 million Ghana cedis, the banks could also be asked again to up their capital based on their risk, what some people might actually call a risk-based capital. I mean, Joy Business actually understands that, these stocks have gone very, very far. Some of them are deep. One foreign bank and local bank are currently in discussions to actually look at merging, and some are also engaging some strategic investors. So what are the options available for a local bank or a foreign bank that wants to raise capital, looking at the one-year period that the finance minister has proposed? Professor Godfred Popkin is an economist with Legon Business School.
Certainly, they will call on shareholders. I mean, existing shareholders may be asked to bring up more capital. If that won't do, they might want to also open it up to some fresh shareholders who would want to bring their capital and all of that. So there are different options that they can explore. I mean, whether from strategic investors' point of view and all of that. But I think that with this development, some of the banks should be able to take advantage and list on the Ghana Stock Exchange and raise funds from the public. In that way, it would also be quite good. And because more often than not, when we talk about strategic investors, we are looking at some investors from outside the country. But it could also be a good avenue to build local ownership in the banking industry in terms of some of them offloading shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange in exchange for capital. By now, the banks do know what is expected of them. If they cannot, they should be able to table a position that says that we need more grace period or something. But we haven't seen that yet. And the indications, and also from the fundamentals, and the fact that, of course, if you want to raise a certain amount of money, the fact that you can't get it from your existing shareholder doesn't mean you should fold up. Okay, you can open up to other investors who would be willing to bring the capital in exchange for part ownership position in the bank.
And apologies for that loss of sound earlier on. And actually explaining to you, we're looking at the implications of this capital raising by these commercial banks on shareholders, on you as a depositor, and also for those who are working in these commercial banks. And as we're talking about banking and investment issues, it might be a good time to share some tips with you that could empower you and help you where you can actually play your sounds. But before we do that, let's look at some interesting development in the Free Zones Enclave. Now, basically, they are trying to encourage local firms to be part of this whole Free Zones initiative, where some tax waivers and incentives are given to firms to operate in an industrial enclave. Now, the board is also looking at how industries or local firms can be encouraged or incentivized to be part of this whole one district, one factory. The executive secretary of the board, Michael Ocheribefi, has been speaking to Joy Business in an interview.
These are people we believe have excess funds to invest, and most of them don't understand the Free Zones program or concept. This is a specialized concept, so we want to tell them. My deputy here understands the concept so well, so I said I should tell them the concept, let them know what the Free Zone stands for, what is our mandate, what they need to do to be part of the Free Zones. And we just want to tell them. So it is a very simple and a short ceremony or meeting for us to introduce the Free Zones concept to them. And we believe that when they even accept the concept and they want to do business and they don't even know the right business to do, we can recommend the business to them because we are poised to help local investors to be part of the program.
How many districts?
As a matter of fact, we wish we'll get all, but it may not be possible. So as many as are ready to be part of the concept or the program, we'll embrace them. We want to embrace as many companies as possible. And so now we're going to even start a preparation towards getting a lot of companies to be part of the arrangement.
Those existing ones who are not doing so much, they are not doing well due to one or two issues, power
the companies
issues.
Yes, you know, we encourage them. We are trying. I mean, the government has brought what we call the stimulus package to take care of businesses in crisis.
Do they also have opportunity to?
Yes, in the company in Ghana, if it's an indigenous company, I mean, you can also be part of it. What we are doing is that we are looking at the concept in totality, the Free Zones concept. Totality. Everybody who wants to be part of the Free Zones is welcome, provided you are prepared to be part of what and be part of what we want to do and be compliant.
So it looks like the initiative is not just for foreign firms who are interested in this. It might be a good time to find out investment tips and how we can empower you.
Investment Tips is brought to you by Daffing Finance, Deposits, Investments, Borrowings and Advisory.
The modified life cycle and investing. In your prime working years, you're likely to spend less on your earning. This likelihood should encourage savings and investing. Remember to increase the amount of your investment consistently during this period. The modified life cycle and investing. This likelihood may lead to the savings. This is reality. Should encourage investing enough for your retirement years. Remember also, you're likely to need 80% of your income prior to retirement in retirement.
So from investment, let's hop into some communications-related stories. And the Communications Workers Union have welcomed moves by the original owners of Expresso Telecom to actually, that is Clusigen International, to take over the company. And the Deputy General Secretary, Joseph Hotto, has been speaking on these issues in the following report.
Expresso Telecom has been embroiled in this ownership tussle since the early 2000s, leading to its dwindling fortunes. A delegation from Clusigen International last week met some of the workers in a bid to settle their outstanding salaries and social security contributions. The mother union for the workers say it is ready to work with Clusigen International in meeting the needs of the workers whilst turning the company's fortunes around. Joseph Hotto is the Deputy General Secretary.
Since 2013, they were not paying our staff. Maybe once a while, they will just give them something small. Sometimes a month, they can pay them a quarter of a month. So we started looking around for who owe the company. And up to today, we've not found anybody until Mr. Clusigen. If they have cleared all issues surrounding who owns the company, and he coming out to say, why not? Because we are workers. We don't own shares, let me say so. But once we are social partners to whoever owns it, we welcome him. We have a lot of problems and a lot of things that he needs to tackle.
The chief executive of the Jospon Group, Joseph Siao Ejapon, last week denied his company ever attempted buying out Expresso Telecom. Mr. Hotto says the union welcomes this too, even though their initial information pointed to the contrary.
With our locals, they do a lot of investigation around these issues because they got to a point when the cell sites, electricity goes off, for instance, and we were using gensets. They'll tell us once in a while that he has come to fuel the gensets. How does he do that? Because maybe they see his vehicles branded in Jospon or whatever. Is it Zoom Lion? So when he came up to say that he has never expressed interest. He serves the public. So it might be on the assumption that because his vehicles have been seen around, that is why. So, it has narrowed our search. Then once he is out of the race, then I think we've gotten somewhere.
The Expresso File series seeks to provide insights and updates on the long-standing controversies surrounding the ownership of Expresso Telecom.
And not too soon, we have to draw the curtain down on this program. It's Monday, and it said that it's quite a stressful day for those who have to go to work today. So why don't you take it easy, step out for lunch, and later come back and get on to work. Have a good afternoon. My name is Georgia.